Hi there folks, welcome back to my channel, and for this video I'm going to be talking about the first book that I've actually managed to read this year, and it's actually taken me about a month and a half just to read one book. This is why I'm really jealous of people who can just plough through loads of books and get so much reading done in a year, because I really struggle sometimes. Yeah, and I do think that part of it is the fact that, yeah, I'm dyslexic, I'm a slow reader. Sometimes books just don't catch my attention when I really want them to kind of be good books. But I have actually managed to finally finish a book for this year, and it is called Alchemy and Rose by Sarah Maine. And is it last year or the year before this book came out? Don't quite know, but finally got around to reading it this year. But I will talk a bit more about that in depth in just a moment. A wee bit of housekeeping first. If you enjoy my channel, if you enjoy my videos, if you can click on the subscribe button, click on that notification bell, leave some likes, leave some comments. It's always really appreciated. And if you'd like to support the channel further, I will post a link to the channel's coffee.com page and the PayPal account in the description bar below and in a pinned comment in the comments section. So with that out the roads, back on to the main topic of the video, which, as I was saying, is Alchemy and Rose. And I have to admit, I do actually quite like the cover of the book itself, as, again, doesn't really give much away about the story, but it does have kind of just a nice feel about the story itself. Or it has just a nice feel, a nice kind of artsy kind of look about it. So the book itself is actually set in 1866, so mid-19th century. Most of it's set in New Zealand, with a wee bit in Australia and a tiny little bit in Scotland. And it was billed as a Scottish novel because some of it's set in Scotland, and the two main characters are Scottish. But I don't think Sarah Maine's Scottish herself. But the book itself does start in Scotland. It starts in what I'm guessing is a fictional place, because I don't think there is actually a Kinloss in the west coast of Scotland. But that's where the book starts, and pretty much where it ends as well. I don't want to give too much of it away, but there is a prologue at the start, which very much does set up quite a lot of what happens later on in the book itself. And yes, I've just noticed that there is a mistake. It says on the back of the book that it's 1866, but flicking through to the prologue and to the first chapter, the prologue is dated 1874 and the first chapter is dated 1876. So I'm not too sure why I have a different date on the back of the book. It's just a bit strange that I hadn't actually noticed that before. Don't know if maybe that's some sort of typo or some sort of error. But as I was saying, there's events in the prologue that very much do tie in with what happens later on in the book itself. And when I did actually get into the main body of the text, and like at the start of the first chapter, there seems to be a lot going on. A lot of different characters are introduced. They're all introduced, a lot of them at the same time, and there just seems to be this kind of jumble of like who's who, what's going on. I think it took me a couple of chapters for me to actually get all the characters straight in my head, try and understand, okay, oh, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, and it just did confuse me, because I wasn't really too sure who was who, and it took me a wee while to actually kind of get that straight in my head. So the two main characters of the novel are Rose and Will, and the book itself does start with a shipwreck, and Will essentially saving Rose's life from the shipwreck and from her being lost at sea. And you do find out a wee bit more about Rose during her time of recovery, and you do see that she does have some sort. She is suffering from some sort of depression from everything she's had to deal with up to that point, and the fact that she obviously feels trapped and is kind of constrained by her circumstance. And I have to admit, a lot of the characters within Alchemy and Rose, I didn't really feel any sympathy or connection with. Because I did find, especially towards the start of the book, Will very much came across as being quite a jealous, angry character, especially when it came to like maybe other people having connection or interactions with Rose. If like he saw her dancing with somebody else, he would have all these jealous feelings, and would feel almost as if he was entitled to Rose because he had saved her life. And yeah, it's that to me that I found that quite a difficult thing to kind of get by. That, okay, I know this is set back in like the mid to late 19th century, or more like a mid 19th century, and actors between men and women were different, but it was just the way that Will was written, especially towards the start. I was just a bit kind of like, I'm not rooting for him, not really keen on him. But yeah, again, as well, just like a personal thing. And I know that I just suspected the way that it was written, like that there would be this slight kind of conflict between the two characters, but Will feeling drawn to her through these feelings of like jealousy and wanting her to be his. What was almost supposed to be representative of them being drawn together, that there was this connection, it's supposed to be this connection between the two of them, but I just didn't feel it quite worked. I just felt it just came across as being maybe a bit forced and a bit questionable in some respects. And it's almost, another thing I did notice that within like the first 10 chapters of Alchemy and Rose, it was almost as if Will was making a habit of rescuing Rose. He rescues her from the shipwreck, he rescues her from Molly's, which is the brothel where she was essentially staying in order to recover, in which she was being essentially threatened with being put to work as a working girl in order to pay for her care and board. And essentially that plays into what happens towards the end of the book as well. It just seems to be, yeah, so actually you think about it, right, it's very noticeable within the first 10 or so chapters that he's not coming into this habit of saving her. But it does kind of play out for the rest of the book as well. Because I did notice that later on in the book, with how things develop, how things happen between Will and Rose, they end up getting split up, and there's essentially this chase like halfway across the world, and Rose is in the grasp of a not particularly pleasant character who is known to Will, and she has, I think she has about 3 or 4 opportunities to escape. And all she does try and take one, she does try and escape at one point, but gets caught by the landlord of the hotel that they're staying in and gets brought back. But there still were other times where she could have gotten away, but decides not to, and essentially ends up waiting to be rescued. So as far as I'm concerned, she actually ends up spending most of the novel being damselled. And it's almost as if she has like no agency. It's almost as if like she's waiting for someone to rescue her. Whether that be Will or someone else. It just, to me, I found that a bit grating that, yeah, okay, I'm not saying that characters can't be damselled at points throughout a novel or throughout a series, if it's done right and it's not overused, it can actually help develop a character. But I do think that within Alchemy and Rose, the fact that Rose does spend most of the novel being damselled and needing to be rescued or wanting to be rescued, and not actually really taking the initiative really in at some points, I just found was a bit annoying. And if I do remember correctly, is it even commented upon a couple of times by other characters that Will has the habit of rescuing her, and it just makes it a bit obvious that she's almost, it's almost as if she is like, it does just make it very obvious that when you actually do look back on it all, that Rose is the object of Will's quest. Because again, that imagery of alchemy, the imagery of quests and seeking something, is something that does crop up throughout the novel. And Will himself as a character does actually bring up that idea of his quest on like 2 or 3 different occasions within the book, but a lot of the time it's towards the start of the book when he's talking about his search for gold during the New Zealand gold rush. And again, the whole idea of gold as well is very much an alchemist or an alchemy kind of symbol. That's what a lot of them were trying to achieve with alchemy. They were trying to turn base metals into gold. So it's almost as if he sees like this search for making his fortune in the gold rush as his alchemy kind of quest. And it's almost elusive, because even though he does find gold, with the development of events, a lot of it he ends up losing or ends up getting taken by someone else. And I also read online that the imagery of Rose within alchemy is very much that of love, loyalty, beauty, and sensuality. So it could also be seen that, I'm trying not to give too much away of the novel itself, just in case anyone does want to read this, does actually want to sit down and enjoy this novel. But there is one section in the novel that involves Rose and Fraser Urquhart, who is one of our characters in the novels, who does actually show up right at the start of the novel and does play an important part in how the novel develops. And with how this section develops, it very much does allow to bring Rose close to what she could be as a person. But that all kind of comes crashing down and leads to events later on in the book, which essentially sees a continuation of her as a damsel. And yeah, so it's, to me personally, Alchemy and Rose could be one of those books that could have been so much better, could have done so much more, especially with the alchemy aspects, with the alchemy imagery, and could have brought so much more to the story. But it just felt lacking in a lot of ways and in a lot of respects, and yeah. And I do think that the novel The Alchemist by Paul Cohen? I did actually find that to be a far better novel with alchemy symbolism. And with relation to the end as well, again, I don't want to give too much of it away. I don't want to say how the book itself ends, but I did find it very much an anticlimax. That I know that Maine was essentially trying to build up to be this confrontation at the end, where Rose essentially is the prize, where she is the one that is at stake here, and it felt very much a letdown. It just didn't really seem to go anywhere, it just kind of fizzled out. And it just felt to be something of a letdown, especially if were wanting this big finish, this big climax towards the end of the novel. It just felt a bit like a damp squib, and it just peters out. And I know there was a lot of talk about Alchemy and Rose, especially when it first came out, or after it came out. There was it seemed to be quite a bit of chatter about it. And a lot of people talking about how it was such a good novel, and it actually seemed to get a good write up in like papers like the Times, but it's not one that I'd recommend. As a novel itself, I did find it a bit of a struggle to read. I just wasn't drawn into the story at all, didn't find the characters that enticing, just found it all a bit beige and a bit bland, and didn't entice me at all. So yeah, even though this is the first book that I managed to read this year, I did find it to be one that is a bit of a disappointment. And it's not really one that I would recommend. Again, it's very much my own opinion. I'm pretty sure there are people out here who absolutely adore Alchemy and Rose, and who would probably very much hate the books that I absolutely adore. But personally, I just found Alchemy and Rose to be a disappointment and a bit of a letdown really. But hopefully, now that I've finished Alchemy and Rose, I can move on to other books which hopefully will be more entertaining, be more satisfying, more exciting, that sort of thing. So hopefully you'll have enjoyed this video. Hopefully you'll enjoy what other videos I'll be bringing out this year. And I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.